Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit PastTheWire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Unfiltered on Past the Wire TV. Breeders' Cup Win and You're In edition, along with another topic where we'll segment into after we talk about the latest two U.S.-based Breeders' Cup Win and You're In horses, Bran and Red Knight. Both earned their way in at the tricky, challenging Euro-style Kentucky Downs turf course. What'd you think, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, they were very interesting races in terms of both horses. Obviously, Kentucky Downs been getting a lot of water on the track, so it's playing more towards like a European style of racing than American, and you've got that up the hill finish with a couple different bends. So I thought they were interesting races. I mean, probably to kick it off, let's start with Red Knight. And what were your thoughts watching that race, John?
First thought was I was surprised Gufo was in it. Okay, Gufo ran that big race at Saratoga, and on another show that I do with Dawn Lupel, I spoke about Gufo in that race, and Gufo throughout the history of his career, and you might find this interesting from a training perspective, when he takes blinkers off or comes off Lasix, that next start, he seems to run one of his A races. And in the race in Saratoga was the first time in his career that he was taking blinkers off and coming off Lasix, and bang, he ran a good race, which I would say is very consistent with his form cycle throughout his career, really. So I was surprised they ran him back off that so quick in the Breeders' Cup, and I thought in the Kentucky Breeders' Cup Win and You're In race, and I thought, maybe I picked up on something that Clement didn't. Maybe he just thought the horse was really getting good and didn't realize that it was those two things that kind of propelled that horse to run his A race. And I'm thinking about it more. I thought, you know what? Maybe not. Maybe he just said it's $1 million pot. He's got enough time to recover from that race for the Breeders' Cup. And I don't think he was in that race as the ultimate goal, so to speak. I think it was more, a fitness move, take a shot kind of move with enough time to rebound. I thought he ran well. Obviously, the winner ran better. The winner got the jump on him, saved ground with that last turn. When they make that left turn towards the stretch, he kind of, already had to jump and save that extra ground. And Red Knight, say what you will, he's a game tough, old war horse that, when he runs his best race, he can be competitive in a field like that. I don't think he's a Breeders' Cup turf type of horse. I think there's usually a couple better than him when you get to that level. And I don't even think a trip could get him home first. I think he's really up against it against those types if he goes. I did think Gufo can benefit from that race. And I didn't really think there was anybody behind them that I would be particularly worried about in the Breeders' Cup.
Right. And I think, it's interesting that you mentioned those things, because I think we talked about it last time when we discussed the Sword Dancer and how Gufo kind of ran in that spot and ran a great race. And then from there, we were discussing what are some of the things this horse might deal with, right? Where he'd run big races and not show up, and on firmer tracks doesn't seem to be there. And I think I mentioned feet because I did see the
Yes.
shoes that he wore in that Sword Dancer. And so when you're dealing with horses with foot issues, sometimes if you run them, you get more fitness and you don't have to train them as hard in training. And it makes it easy on keeping horses that might have sore foot problems going in the right direction. So again, I don't know if that's his issue. The Gufo shoes that he wears is definitely for horses that A, can't withstand nails, and B, can't withstand traditional glue-on. So they're very good shoes that are therapeutic shoes. And I didn't look closely enough in the race at Kentucky Downs to see if he was wearing those in that race. Obviously, I'm here at Keeneland trying to inspect yearlings for book 1, which is going to be starting today. So didn't see him in person like I did in Saratoga. So can't give you, unless I zoom in, what type of shoes he was actually wearing. So it could have been, as you're saying, John, a fitness move to keep him going forward and to keep him in the right direction as he prepares for the Breeders' Cup. He obviously finished second. Red Knight got the jump on him. I was lucky enough in my training career to train Red Knight's half brother, which was McKagan, who was a very good New York bred. Red Knight's obviously a very good New York bred. It's a good family. And I always felt that McKagan had the potential to potentially step into the, grade 2, grade 1 category. He's a phenomenal horse.
Right.
The thing that held that horse back in comparison to his brother was McKagan had a weird habit of, if you let him off the bridle, right? So if you held that horse in the bridle and he felt like he had you and he could run off with you, he'd run all day long and run through the bridle. When you throw a cross, he'd hit the brakes. And so it happened once, several times, where he'd open up on horses, look like he was home clear, and the rider would, loosen up the cross on the horse and start flagging and throwing the reins at him, and they'd hit the brakes and then get beat. So that was the one thing characteristically that held McKagan back physically as a specimen of a racehorse. He was a very, very good horse that I thought had grade 1 potential in him. So it's interesting to see his brother do it. Obviously, there's a trainer change from Bill Mott to Mike Maker coming off the layoff. And Mike's won 2 in a row with the horse. So the horse going in the right direction. I would agree with you 100%, John. I don't think he's a Breeders' Cup turf contender in terms of what we would like to see from an American horse going into that type of race. I think he handled that course better than Gufo. And I think going forward, what we're going to see, and just hats off to Trinity Farm. Like, I'm happy for you guys. Loved you guys as clients. So great to see you guys having a berth in the Breeders' Cup with a horse that you guys have bred and still have. And, you've obviously done really well by the horse. For me personally, though, I think, enjoy the day. I think there's going to be some better horses we talked about coming from Europe in that division.
I just want to say something quick, and I'm going to say it on the air so we remember it, because you just introduced 2 new great topics, I think, for Unfiltered episodes going forward. And I want to get them on the record because you know me, I'll forget, and you got a million things going on, you might forget. One is, I wanted to do a show in the near future talking about some of your experiences with horses like McKagan and giving riders instructions about quirks about, and getting that I know what I'm doing, or them going out and just doing something completely different. That's very interesting. And you've probably got some interesting stories about stuff like that, where they come back and then you're like, did you not hear what I said? I mean, that's going to be a good show. Another thing that you said, I think, is another interesting show. We know Bill Mott is a great trainer. Okay.
Right.
Hall of Famer. I mean, you could list, we would need a book to write down all the great horses. I mean, look at Segar's campaign. But when you mentioned, Red Knight going from Mott to Maker, it reminded me of another horse that went from Mott to Marty Wolfson. And he was kind of a forgotten horse. Miesque's Approval, I believe, was his name. Win the Breeders' Cup. I don't know if he bought him or Live Oak moved him, or Wolfson actually claimed him from like a $75,000 or $100,000 high claim. I don't remember what were the circumstances, but he was kind of like forgotten, on the way down, seeing better days. Wolfson took him, won a Breeders' Cup race with him. So I want to talk about, on another episode, horses that go from a Hall of Fame guy, great guy, and go to somebody else and seem to get better. And there's so much to get into with that. You know what I mean? Did they find a hole? Did they find a nuance? Is it just new scenery? But we'll get to that on two good episodes to follow up on.
Well, and I think you said it right. They're great topics, and I'll give you just two fun tidbits before we, we'll fully cover them. So, yeah, one race that stands out to me in my mind of McKagan was he had just won wire to wire at Belmont with blinkers on, first time, 1 by 6, and we took him up and we ran him in the New York Bred Allowance at Saratoga. He ran second, so he kept getting to the lead, looking like he was clear, and then hit the brakes on a rider. So in the middle of the winter, Fernando Jara was in Aqueduct for the winter, and I had the horse ready to run. It was closing down to the turf course at Aqueduct. So it was the last start before I was going to give the horse some time off.
Right.
And I told Jara, I said, you gotta be careful with this horse. If he comes out of the gate, the reason why I put blinkers on was he really paid attention to noise behind him. And with blinkers, he'd be in the bit and he'd really go. So I told Fernando, I said, be careful when you come out of the gate with this horse, because if you tap him on the shoulder at all to hustle into the lead, you are in for a ride, and it's not the right thing to do. And I said, at the same time, you got to be careful, because even when you think you're gone and you're gone for home, this horse can hit the brakes all of a sudden if you throw across. You need to keep him in the bridle. And if you watch some old-time riders, guys like Angel Cordero and guys like Lafitte and Kai, they kept their crosses tight on horses while they drove them to the finish. Right. When you see a lot of these modern day riders, you see them with reins flapping down the lane as they're trying to hit with the stick. And when you keep a horse and the cross together, it helps that horse balance himself as he goes down the stretch. It gives him some confidence. At the same time, some horses like the feeling of wanting to run off and feel in control. So basically, the horse broke a step slow. Fernando Jara tapped this horse on the shoulder. And I remember watching this horse on the backside in the announcement. McKagan is 24 lengths in front of the rest of the field, right? And the horse is cruising on the lead. Then he's 15 lengths in front of the field. Then he's 12 lengths in front of the field at the quarter pole. And I'm thinking, well, as long as he does not throw the cross, the horse is far enough in front that he won't get beat. But what does he start doing at the quarter pole? He panics and he starts throwing the cross. The horse is still full of run. It's not like he ran out of gas, but the horse literally hit the brakes. He ran second again. And I'm just like, I cannot believe it. I told you not to hit him with the whip. You come out of the gate, you open up 24 lengths on the field by the half-mile pole, and then you panic at the quarter pole and get yourself beat. So that was one experience with a specific horse, and I can give you multitudes more.
Yeah, we'll do a show on that, because that's some interesting stuff. The other horse that earned their way into the Breeders' Cup, Bran, I think is a very interesting horse. I think he's kind of, an under the radar horse that, you look at his form, he shows up every time. He was able to take his game out of California, run a big race. With the right setup and under the right conditions, I think he can be a player at the Breeders' Cup level. I don't know whether he'll go in the mile or the turf sprint. I would imagine the mile, but I'm not sure. But I think the turf sprint might be a better spot for him. And I think he's a dangerous horse. I'll be very interested at one thing. I think Vincent Chaminade is an excellent rider, and I think he rode him really, really well. And when he won, you could see the enthusiasm. He was fist pumping, he was celebrating. And I think in his mind, he thought he earned himself a Breeders' Cup mount. And the first thing I said was, don't be too sure, because it reminded me of when Umberto Rispoli put on a fantastic ride on Rock Your World in the Santa Anita Derby, got him into the Kentucky Derby, was celebrating the win, and then got bumped off for Joel Rosario by John Sadler, because Joel was so Sadler will make those kind of moves, and it's interesting. And that's a whole nother topic for another show, those kind of jockey moves. But a week or two after that, I had interviewed Paolo Lobo, and it was pre-breeder, a couple of months rather, and it was pre-Breeders' Cup. And Ashard had rode his horse at Kentucky Downs, I believe, or maybe at Keeneland, and got him into the Breeders' Cup. And when I mentioned any thoughts of taking him up, it was like, absolutely not. He rode, a great race. So it'll be interesting to see if Sadler goes to one of his more, quote, go-to guys or bigger name guys with Bran after Chaminade, who can ride and deserves the opportunity, in my opinion. Put on a great ride, put on a flawless ride, got the horse into the big dance. And I think the horse is a lot. He'll be a long shot. There'll be a lot of horses that get a lot more recognition than him, but I think he's a dangerous horse to dismiss.
Yeah, he showed a phenomenal turn of foot, right? I mean, he burst through the seam through horses right there at the end and really got up at the wire. And it, as you said, it was a phenomenal ride. I personally think with those are the things that you mentioned, I do probably see Sadler making a change come Breeders' Cup. It is interesting how some of these guys will jostle around. I was more of the type of trainer with two thoughts in mind. One, how well does this rider know this horse, and how tricky is this horse, right? Going back to the previous comments, right? Does this horse have a lot of quirks that I need somebody who really understands this horse and got the best out of him last start to be on him? Or is he a very easy horse to ride that you can pretty much put anybody on him and see what happens in that regard? So that's the question. To me, that type of horse, and looking at him and how he ran with that explosive turn of foot, I immediately think of the jock who just rode Flightline that Sadler would probably look to put on him if he could get him, would be Flavien Prat, since he's so good at timing a finish and getting horses to finish. You just mentioned Rispoli. He's another one, a phenomenal guy who can finish on horses, really good when it comes to understanding how much you have and how much you need to kick with when you have that opportunity. I see Sadler maybe leaning towards a more experienced Breeders' Cup type rider. And I think that could potentially be a detriment. The question is, how easy is the horse to ride? Right. And those are things that go along with it. But, when you have horses that are literally easy, it's not too difficult for who you need to ride them. But when you get into those quirkier horses, and it'd be interesting to understand, is he quirky? Does he need a rider who really knows him? I see a potential jock change going to the Breeders' Cup on this horse. And, the guy deserves it. He should get a shot. I don't know if he'll get it, but he rode a phenomenal race. You can't fault him for what he did in that race at all. And I think he deserves to stay on the horse personally.
I agree, and it'll be interesting to see if Sadler keeps that trend of liking to bump guys. Obviously, he likes, he's got a little love affair going with Pratt now, understandably so. They've got, the horse that's the rage of the United States and, maybe in the world. But
Pratt was his guy in California. I mean, he was one of the guys that really put him on the map.
Right, and before that, he likes Rosario too. That's who he took. He took Rispoli off. But there's something to be said for loyalty and consistency and continuity in all of sports. I'm more of a fan of that. But
if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, the Unfiltered segment of this show, that's the Breeders' Cup winning you're in. The Unfiltered is gonna kind of roll from that because, we mentioned Gufo and Red Knight, coming off Kentucky Downs. Bran is going to be coming off Kentucky Downs. I have lack of a better term, a handicapping angle that I've followed for years and years and years. And there are a couple of tracks that I consider, for lack of a better term, great tracks to leg up on or come off of and run well somewhere else. And I'll tell you which they are. Payson Park in Florida. I love horses over there. They come off of Payson Park, and certain works you see at Payson Park. When I see a horse work a certain way at Payson, I know they're going to run big. Tampa Bay Downs. Horses come off Tampa Bay Downs. People think it's a cheaper meet. They get overlooked. They run huge. Calder used to be the same way until it closed down. It's not there anymore. On the grass, it's tougher to find horses like that. Kentucky Downs is one, in my opinion. Horses come off that over the hills, through the meadow, left turn, right turn, uphill, downhill course, and run very well when they get on a firm, tight, different type of course. So, it used to be that the Kentucky Down races got a little overlooked when those horses went somewhere else. Now it's kind of worked itself up into a boutique premier meet. It's not, my little secret anymore. which, 7, 8 years ago it was, things change, people catch on. But I think it's a great course to come off of and then run on. A California course, I like it even more, because Keeneland's not as fast a course, in my opinion, as California, and even New York in the summertime might be, or Churchill Downs even, although they have a whole new turf course now. We'll see what happens with that. But what are your thoughts on, again, that term that I don't like, but I'm going to use, legging up on Kentucky Downs, and then coming off that course onto a level standard type American course? And is Kentucky Downs kind of parallel to those European courses? And has that got a little something to do with how the Euros do so well here, because they train on courses like that and run on courses like that? I mean, if you and I are both training for a race, and I'm training running uphill and you're training running level, don't I have the advantage?
The way I look at it, John, and you'd love this, obviously, being a boxer, is it's Rocky when he faced the gentleman from Russia, right? It's
Right.
running up the hills, it's lifting the logs versus being in a beautifully manicured gym. So you mentioned 3 tracks previously before we even talked about Kentucky Downs, and I want to get into the meat of those comments real quick. So those 3 tracks were known for being so heavy with sand that the fitness that you got out of training at Payson Park, I remember my first wintering down there. And when I was there, Bill Mott mentioned to me, I was an assistant for McPeak at the time. And he said, Mike, if your horses are breezing half miles, back them up to 3/8. And I'm like, why? I mean, these horses are race fit. They're good to go. Why would I back them up? And quickly I watched them gallop day one. And I said, oh, now I understand. The track was so heavy with sand, and it's a deep sandy track, that it takes a lot of fitness to get over that track. So one of the greatest performance enhancers in horse racing is fitness. And that's typically what the Europeans come over to the United States with. They come up over with a lot more fitness than our horses have. So Calder was a track you could get horses razor fit on. Payson Park was the same, and Tampa Bay Downs is the same. Very sandy track where it's a little bit deeper, and those horses get really fit in the morning, not just breezing, but galloping. And yes, when you run in a race at Tampa Bay Downs, the way that you need to think about it is those horses are training at those facilities every day. So they're getting fitness from that. When you're saying Kentucky Downs in a prep race for coming off of it, I would agree. A lot of those horses were rubber-legged coming home because they're not used to undulating grounds and having to change their pace and accelerate and slow down and bunch up. And the turf course, as we've seen, they've had to cancel twice because of torrential rain. So bogged down turf course, really wet, undulating ground, and having to finish uphill, you get a ton of fitness out of races like that. So that's the biggest thing that you need to think about going forward. I think Gufo takes a big step forward fitness wise going into the Breeders' Cup. But yes, when I worked internationally, I could tell you what, the European horses were much fitter than American horses, and the Australian horses are far fitter than American horses. We in the United States, which used to frustrate me as a trainer, we have 3 or 4 different options when it comes to horses. We can jog them the wrong way, we can gallop them the right way, or we can breeze them the right way. Those are our only options. So all we can change is distance and speed. We can't change if they're going uphill. We can't change. We can add different types of equipment to make them go a little bit more collected and work on musculature by putting on draw reins and different things, but we can't do as much as the Europeans do because our facilities aren't just that to lend to it. Australia has swimming pools, which we don't have in the United States either, which is a huge leg up. So we are very limited in the United States with how fit we can get these horses, because the biggest thing that we discuss over and over, right, is if you train a horse as hard as you want for a race, you might not have missed sound as you want for a race. Well, going uphill takes a lot of concussion off of front legs on horses. So you can push horses uphill a little bit more and get them a little bit more fit. Our tracks lend to a lot of pounding on the front legs. So if you have a horse, as I mentioned, I don't know, I'm just judging by the shoes, a horse like Gufo that has potentially sore feet and or foot problems, you can't pound on a horse like that because it's all pounding on the front feet. So you can't displace that weight back. You can't help that horse in a manner to where he can continue to improve his fitness forward. So a race like this will help him take a leap forward on the other American horses going forward. So That's the biggest factor. Is most of our horses, when you get on the international stage, are not as fit as some of the other horses in other countries. Our dirt horses are, because we specialize in that, but our grass horses are not.
And really interesting stuff. And we kind of segmented without it being an intention into, not only is Kentucky Downs a great place to prep for Breeders' Cup races, and we know that a lot of trainers and barns point for that meet now. So it's a boutique meet. You've got good horses there, good riders. They put up tremendous purses, and we know good horses will follow the money. There's never been a meet historically that was able to pull from Saratoga and run head up with Saratoga those last couple of days, and Kentucky Downs is able to do that and pull riders and barns away. But we kind of got into one of the several reasons, but I think a key reason that the European horses are so successful when they come here at the grade 1 and grade 2 level, sometimes with group 3 horses. They come here because of, and to me, it was always common sense. And you're making it more technical and bringing it, but to me, it was always common sense. It was, hey, they're running uphill, downhill, this way, that way. It's an edge, you know what I mean? It's an edge. And I like the example of Rocky and I think the guy's name was Ivan Drago in the movie. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Ivan Drago. Yeah, for
Ivan
sure.
Drago, but Dolph Lundgren was the actor.
Yeah.
But, I think that's a tremendous edge, and it goes to that determination to get fit. You can make yourself that way in almost any environment. You look at some people that go to jail and they're locked in a cell 23 hours a day. Okay. And they go in and they're average built people and they come out chiseled like they're on steroids. You know what I mean? And they're not. Right. Just they got 23 hours a day and, push-ups and pull-ups and calisthenics and all of that stuff that you can do in there is just, you can get yourself fit. So when you do things, I think outside the box like that, it works. So,
well, here's the biggest thing, and I'll just lead into just the 3 different types of training that I've seen internationally, just based on the 3 countries that I discussed, right? So in America, most horses go out and they might jog a half mile to warm up. I used to make all my horses jog 1 mile to warm up before they gallop. So most horses will jog about a half mile, if that, and then they'll go gallop 1 3/8 to 1.5 miles, and that'll be their day. So they're on the track literally between 8 to 12 minutes, and then they're back home walking 30 minutes, and then they're in the stall. Okay, so that's United States. Then you go to Europe. Most of these horses come out and they jog and they warm up for a good 10 minutes. And they're not looking at mileage, they'll look at rounds. So they'll jog and warm up, and then they'll go up these uphill gallops, especially in Newmarket. So some of those horses are cantering up steep uphill, so they might go up twice. So it'd be a total of 1 mile going up a hill. Sometimes they'll go up 3 times. And then you have what's called long hill gallop in Newmarket, and that's 1.5 miles. Okay. So when you see these horses go up the 2nd time or the 3rd time up Warren Hill, which is about a little over a half mile, you know how fit they are because they're still flying up at the end of the gallop. All right. So I've personally, because when I wanted to train, I wanted to understand racing surfaces better. I used to run on the tracks that I wanted to train on. Yes, it is tiring running on American racetracks because it's loose dirt, but I have almost keeled over multiple times trying to go up the uphill gallops in Europe, especially Long Hill, which is 1.5 mile pull. I remember running up Long Hill several times, and I'm out of breath, just done. And I'm only a half mile into it with 1 mile further to go. So those horses are typically out and they train for at least an hour a day, right? So we're doing 15 minutes, they're doing an hour. Australia, take another step. Yes, one of the trainers that I worked with in Australia, who is a big time Melbourne Cup trainer, those horses would come out and do 30 minutes on the walker. They then go to the racetrack. They then go gallop about 1.5 miles. Sometimes they do 2 miles on the track. They'd come back, they'd swim for 5 minutes. Then they'd go back, he'd put on the walker for another 25 minutes. That was morning, put them away. Bring them back out in the afternoon, swim them for another 5 minutes, walk them for another 25. So those horses are training about 1.5 hours a day. So that's the biggest difference. we don't have, and it's part of it is how our industry is structured financially when it comes to training. It's very financially heavy as a trainer to run an operation if you want to run it like a European style operation. Here we put stall bandages on the horses, we put polos on the horses, we put elastics on the horses because our surfaces need that for us to train these horses properly here, which means you need one groom for every 4 horses, you need a hot walker for every 5, you need an exercise rider for every 7. In Europe, the grooms are the riders. So what they gallop is what they get on, but because they're galloping on synthetic tracks and they're going uphill, they're not putting stall bandages on horses. They're not putting elastics. Some will put polos, some will put elastics every now and again. Those horses are just pretty much going out. They get brushed off, they throw the tack on. Sometimes you'll still see straw on the tail of these horses when they go out and train. They go train, they come back, they get a small bath hosed off, put on a walking machine, and then put away. So it's less labor intensive. So those horses have more time they can be outside and training. Same thing with Australia. The riders groom the horses. Basically, in Australia, you have a couple guys who clean all the stalls, and the riders are the ones grooming the horses and riding the horses. So each rider will take care of between 6 and 8 horses, and they'll gallop 6 and 8 horses every day. And so how it's structured, because the racing facilities in other countries have machinery, whether it's a European walking machine or whether it's a swimming pool or what have you, to where you can get a lot more done with a lot less staff. And because of that, it allows the horses to be out longer, to get fitter, to have more time being worked with in a training environment than we do in the United States.
Right. Yeah. No, really, really fascinating stuff. And there's, always different ways to get fit. And I think that, some of those ways are really a legitimate edge over some of the things that we do.
Huge.
Here. Interesting.
Like case in point, really quickly, let's say you have a horse that is known for having foot problems in the United States, right?
Right.
There's no way that you can limit the concussion on that horse. You can go to jogging, but jogging still puts pressure on the feet as they jog. So you're either galloping, breezing, you're always putting. If you gave a trainer who had a horse that was a good horse that just had minor foot issues from time to time, and you gave him a swimming pool, game changer. You could swim that horse 5-6 days a week. You could gallop him and breeze him every now and again. And you could keep that horse fit and going forward without the constant pounding on the feet, because you now have a whole different environment to use to keep that horse fit. So the more as we go forward, and it's great to see HISA come in, and it's great to see a lot of the stuff that's coming in as a part of our game. But the more that we bring in new types of modalities for trainers to utilize, the bigger acceleration we have for equine welfare at the racetracks, because the more things trainers can do to keep these horses healthy and sound versus the traditional either go counterclockwise or clockwise at different paces.
Right. Couple of housekeeping things I want to get out there real quick, because people have been asking me about this. First and foremost, Breeders' Cup is coming up. We're going to have a ton of coverage, a ton of shows, some live on-scene surprises that you people are going to absolutely love. If you've been enjoying Unfiltered, past the wire TV, Michael, myself, you're going to love some of the stuff we got coming up. Phenomenal stuff you're not going to see anywhere else. As far as Michael runs Forza Bloodstock. You can reach him through their webpage, Forza Bloodstock. I've been getting people asking me about how they can, get knowledge from you, get involved in different aspects of racing, maybe partnerships and whatnot. People have commented it's like having 2 trainers, when Michael's involved. He manages horses, manages stables, manages partnerships, has a partnership venture going of his own. So Forza Bloodstock, you can reach him on Past the Wire. There's a ton of insight from me about racing, angles, wagering, all different experiences that I have had in the game. So both of us are pretty accessible, and we have a ton of great stuff coming out, especially leading into and at the Breeders' Cup. So for everybody that's been asking, that's how we're both pretty easy to find.
Find us on Twitter. I mean, on Twitter, I'm at Michael S.R. Wilson. You can DM me easily. The website is www.raceforza.com. So either or, you can message me through the website, or I'm really good at responding to DMs through Twitter. And And once you DM me, I'll send you my phone number and we can make it even quicker. So absolutely.
Yeah, and that is true. I do see Michael answer a lot of people. We answer, if you look on the YouTube page, both of us answer all the comments unless we miss one or unless it's just something that's just a little bit off color. I'll close out with a quick California story because you're a California guy. I think you'll like it. Okay. A couple of years ago, I went out to the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita. Okay. So Nick D'Agostino, who you know, was working with me at Pass the Wire at the time. He's like, "Are you coming to Clocker's Corner?" I'm like, "No, man. I'm in Los Angeles, man. I'm at horse racing all year long. I'm going to see movie stars and stuff like that." He goes, "What?" I said, "I'll see you later this afternoon. I got my own agenda. I'm doing my own thing here." So I get in the car and I'm like, "I want to see the Hollywood sign, you know?" So I put in navigation, Hollywood sign, come right up, boom. It was only like 20 minutes from the hotel I was at in Pasadena near Santa Anita. I was at the Westin. Took me like 2 hours to get there with the traffic. Okay.
Right.
I didn't care. I get there, I pull up to the bottom where it says Hollywood sign. I see it up this mountain. There's two Los Angeles, I think they were Los Angeles cops sitting there. Okay. So I says, "Guys, I'm from out of town." They're like, "New York, right?" I said, "No, actually Florida." They're like, "You sound like you're from New York." I'm like, "I'm from Florida. Like, I've been there a long time. Originally from Brooklyn, but now from a Floridian." I'm like, "I want to go up to the Hollywood sign." Guy said, "It's about a 2.5 hour hike." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." I says, "Well, where can I leave my car?" He says, "Well, I'm here till 4. Now it's like 10 in the morning." He goes, "You want to park your car right there?" He goes, "I'll watch it for you." I says, "You're going to watch it? Let me park." He goes, "Don't worry about it. As long as you got at 4, I leave, the next guy will tow you." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Absolutely." He goes, "But if you could be down by 4, 10 in the morning by 4, no problem." "How long does it take to get up there?" He says, "About 2.5 hours." I says, "I'm in," leaving the car. I said, "Listen, stupid question. Anything to worry about on this hike? Like, you know what I mean? Is it safe?" He goes, "You may see some bobcats or something like that." He goes, "But they usually stay away from you. If you ignore them, they'll ignore you." So that gave me a little bit of a scare because I'm a city concrete kind of guy. I'm not used to walking with bobcats, you know. But I'm like, all right. And he says it's safe. You know, hopefully there's people on this trail. I made it. Okay. Now we talk about fitness. Okay. From the very bottom. Not only did I make it to the top where they let you go, and I got pictures to prove it. Okay. I went all the way up the grassy knoll to the mountain and took it with me behind, which is not easy to do because that Hollywood sign, you don't realize it when you see it in pictures. When you're standing in front of it, that thing is steep like a SOB. You could fall down that mountain like that. I mean, it looks like it's like solid ground. It's not. It's steep. I was right up there, took the picture. I made it in 45 minutes. Okay.
Wow.
Bottom to top. And I'm no kid. Okay. You want to know what took me longer?
What?
Going down.
Yeah.
It was
On the
harder
knees.
to go down. The knees, you're tripping, the rocks, you're trying to slow yourself down because the momentum starts building. You know what I mean? You got to actually work to slow yourself down because you're going to fall. You know what I mean? So it took me about a good, I would say, hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. It took me like a half hour, 40 minutes longer to get down. But when I came down, cop laughed at me. He goes, "You didn't make it, huh?" I said, "Didn't make it." He goes, looks at this guy, goes, "No way, you made it." I said, "Yeah, look at this." And I showed him, he goes, "Wow." He goes, "For an older guy," he goes, "I'm impressed." He goes, that takes most people, if they make it, about 2.5 hours. He goes, "And you know, you're not allowed to go where you went right up there." You know, I said, "I know, but you know, what are they going to do? Throw me in jail? I went too close to the sign." So the next thing I asked him, I said, "Listen, this is going to sound stupid too. I'm a tourist. Where do I get a map to the stars? I want to see the stars' houses." He goes, "You don't want a map to the stars." He goes, "Come here." He takes me to his car and he says, "This is where you go." And he goes on some like property appraising city, county thing. He goes, "Give me some names." So I start throwing names at him and he prints shit about 10 pages up. He goes, "Here." He goes, "Take these, go have yourself fun." I went, and this, I'm going to end it here. I'm not going to tell anybody this story, what happened, but my next stop, I wound up on Mulholland Drive. You probably know what that is. All right. To me, it was just the street. I parked, I got out of the car, and I rang Jack Nicholson's doorbell. Yes, I did. At the breeder, rang his doorbell. And on another show, I'll tell everybody what happened after that. But I did ring Jack Nicholson's doorbell and did get a response. And when I told Nick, he told me I was nuts, I could get arrested for that in Los Angeles. I said, you can't get arrested for ringing somebody's doorbell. He says, over there, actually, you can. But I didn't get arrested. It's a funny story. And that, true. You can't make that up. That's what I did. I rang Jack Nicholson's doorbell.
I remember because I saw you the next morning at the Breeders' Cup.
Oh, okay. So I might have told you the story, Red. See, I lose my. I'm getting old. That's a bad sign when you repeat stories to somebody that you already told. But it was a couple of years.
No, it's all good. But no, you brought up a great point, right? So what kills you on a hike is not the muscle expenditure to get up; it's the joint pain as you come down to brace yourself.
Down was brutal, man. Down was brutal. That was
well. And it goes back to racehorses, and bring it full circle. You can train these horses very hard. You can get them fit. You can push them. The muscles will handle it. The lungs will handle it. It's the joints that you got to be careful of. And so that's where, as we have more modalities to train horses with, where we can lessen how much pressure and we put on those joints and legs, the more we'll jump forward. So John, you didn't realize you were giving me a great lead in to bring this all back to horse racing with your hiking story, but you did a phenomenal job leading the horse to water.
I get lucky every once in a while. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Michael is at the Keeneland Sale, scoping out yearlings. It starts today, book one.
Book one, yeah. We're going to be
here. Where all the good horses are all the good horses in book one? All the big money horses?
All the big money horses. So basically how Keeneland works is you'll get a lot of your heavy pedigreed horses in book one. Now, in years past, sometimes the physicals did not match up to the pedigrees. This year, there's a lot of good horses with great physiques that also have great pedigrees. And actually one who I think is going to be really exciting, and I talked to the breeder yesterday, is Authentic's full brother. So Authentic's full brother is with Bridie Harrison over here selling at Keeneland book one. He looks very much like his brother. At this stage, talking to both of them and seeing him in person, talking to the breeder, he looks pretty much identical to Authentic. He just has more muscle at this stage of the game. And when I watched Authentic come around, Authentic was kind of narrow, and he was lucky. And not saying that he wasn't a phenomenal racehorse, because he was. I thought he had all the talent in the world. But the fact that the Derby was postponed to when it was helped that horse mature into what he needed to be to win the race at that time of the year. So he was a horse that was kind of narrower, needed muscle, needed to strengthen up as he went through his campaign, and he got that, and everything worked out timing-wise for him. This horse has a little bit more of it as a yearling than he did when he was. So it'll be interesting to see what this horse sells for. His breeder says, what do you think? And I said, look, if you look at him and you see him as a physical horse, he's probably, a $400,000 yearling. I said, but now you add in who his brother is, and you add in that he looks a lot like him, you're at least 750 or above. So it could be nuts when that horse goes to the ring. It'll be very interesting because he's a very nice horse.
Right. Any others that you can share that you have your eye on, or that you, maybe not even for yourself, but just that you think are exciting book one horses? I know you've scoped them all out.
There's a solid group. So over here behind me at 4-Star Sales, there's a really nice Bolt Fioro that we did a little video on, and they also have a very nice Justify. I like that horse a lot. And then down at Mockmer Hall, there's a really nice Mischief filly. I think she's hit 341. There's 3, 1, and 4 in those numbers somewhere, all mixed up. But into Mischief filly down at Mockmer Hall, she's an extremely nice filly. And then there's an American Pharaoh filly in book 2 that I saw yesterday that I'm excited about. So I'll be here looking at yearlings every day for the next 12 to 13 days. So as book 1, expensive horses. Book 2, there's still some good horses. Book 3 is actually, what's funny enough, is where you find really good horses at much more affordable prices. So typically what you can expect is a lot of your really good race horses are coming out of book 3. So that's what we're kind of gearing up for as things go forward.
One other sales question I got: are any of the Gervins getting a buzz? Because he's been so successful, I think unexpectedly successful, just winning at a high clip, So So I'm just curious, did he pick up any kind of buzz yet? People noticing that or not yet?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Okay.
People are noticing it. He's not a book one sire, and he's not a book two sire, but I think you'll probably see a lot of them book 3, 4, and 5. Book one is pretty much going to be your Uncle Mo's, your Into Mischiefs, your Spikestowns, your Medallias. They're looking for big stallion names with big pedigrees, because basically those stallions, most of book one is going to be a top sire with a mare that has black type in her pedigree, right? So either she's
Right.
grade one winner, grade one placed, or has siblings that are in that realm. So the Gervins will be, when I say your racehorse books 3, 4, and 5 is where you'll find good racehorses by all sorts of stallions. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of those because he's been doing phenomenal.
Any other buzz on any new stallions or no?
Well, obviously, it's no secret. Not This Time has exploded. So, I mean, he's got a lot of nice horses in the sale, and he's breaking into that echelon of book one. He's got a couple nice horses. There's one over at Paramount Sales that I like a lot of. Not This Time Colt, who's over there. American Pharaohs are coming back into vogue. Obviously, Justify's come off the mark really, really fast. So those horses are looking interesting. What I've seen, which is kind of interesting, and there's only a couple that I've liked, so I don't know how it's going to pan out, is I'm seeing a lot of Justifies bred to Galileo mares. So it's kind of an interesting mix. For some horses, it's really worked. For others, I'm not so sure. So it's interesting seeing what they're mating some of these stallions that are on the come up to and how they're looking. But Not This Time really stamps his horses. They're all gorgeous horses. So you can see the other thing, and I saw at the previous sales, especially the New York bred sale, the stallion I think that's going to really do well is Audible and Omaha Beach. The Omaha Beach horses look really nice.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for checking in from the sales. Another fun and interesting episode of Unfiltered on Pass the Wire TV. Like we said, you know how to get in touch. You know some of the stuff that's coming up. Some of the stuff you don't know, it's surprises, but we're pretty sure that you will love it all. Thank you, everybody. Michael, I will let you get to work at the sales and go find some grade one winners. Ciao for now.
Awesome. Ciao. See ya.
History remembers moments of extraordinary strength, skill, and determination. True greatness is forged by those who fulfill their destiny.
Here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING. Get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator exclusively on DRF Bets.
Ciao, everybody. Almost time. The Pass the Wire annual Breeders' Cup seminar. Just about here. Live, interactive, replay available. Looking forward to it. We're going to win. No socks. Nobody, don't know. Nobody knows that. Anybody tells you they know that, they're full of it. But there are some things we do know. We know nobody is going to outwork us. We know nobody is going to outplay us. We know nobody is going to outprepare us. We know nobody is going to outswing us, and we know nobody does it better. Our track record in these big day seminars, they are a track record. So a lot of you know that already. We'll be taking some nice swings. There are some horses that we are, and I am waiting for. A couple of European horses I'm hoping come. Some of them I think are. There are some horses we're looking to play against as well. So should be a great seminar this year. Looking forward to it. Hope to see you there. Spots limited. Grab your reservation early. There's always an early discount. And hope to see some of you at the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland as well. So ciao for now, and see you soon. nobody does it better.